if you first of all didn't look at what you're trying to purify and evaluate, where am I? Where am I with regard to my nafs and my actions?
قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we had a break, قدر الله وما شاء فعل. 2 weeks we didn't have the class, and subhanallah, also before I forget, the same will be happening from next week as well. And قدر الله وما شاء فعل, I love for the classes to be continuous, and that's my goal. But sometimes we have some commitments in terms of programs abroad and travel, so there will not be a class next week or the following week either. So please bear that in mind. This week we have a very, very beautiful topic. This topic, I'm really looking forward to it, and preparing it was a pleasure, just to prepare the topic. It was such a pleasure. And this topic is the topic of محاسبة النفس, taking yourself to account. And I personally believe this is a very good place to start the topic of tazkiyatun nafs. Because how can you purify something if you first of all didn't look at what you're trying to purify and evaluate, where am I? Where am I with regard to my nafs and my actions? And I have some beautiful quotes from Al-Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala on this topic, and we're going to share those with you in a structured way in this class tonight, inshaAllah ta'ala. The first thing that we will begin with is we will begin with the fundamental concept of muhasabatun nafs from the Quran. And the most obvious place to quote this from is Surah Al-Hashr, between ayah number 18 and ayah number 20. In the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْتَنظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. This, or these 3 ayat, this is what we would say is al-aslu fi muhasabatun nafs, fi muhasabatin nafs. This is where we start from. This whole topic, it comes back to this ayah. Now bear in mind, this is not the only ayah. We heard, for example, the ayah in Surah Al-Imran, which the Imam read in the first rak'ah. يَوْمَ تَجِدُ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا عَمِلَتْ مِنْ خَيْرٍ مُحْضَرًا. And there are more than one group of ayat which talk about this topic. But if you want to say one ayah that brings this topic really into focus, it is this ayah in Surah Al-Hashr. Likewise, the ayah in Surah Al-Qiyamah, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ. And really our discussion today is all going to be around an-nafs al-lawwamah, the soul that criticizes and blames itself. You look at yourself and you look at what is there, and then you blame yourself for where you're falling short, and you correct where you're falling short. This is the topic that we want to speak about today. Al-Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala in Ighathatul Lahfan, and most of the quotes today, they came from this book. The book Ighathatul Lahfan, in the first volume, and most of it is between page 83 and around 152. A lot of discussion on this topic. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, دلت الآية على وجوب محاسبة النفس. This ayah tells us that it is wajib. It's not recommended. It's not from the completion of your good deeds. It is wajib upon you to take your soul to account. فيقول تعالى لِيَنْظُرَ أَحَدُكُمْ مَا قَدَّمَ لِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مِنْ أَعْمَالٍ أَمِنَ الصَّالِحَاتِ الَّتِي تُنْجِيهِ أَوْ مِنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ الَّتِي تُوبِقُهُ. He said, what Allah is saying to you, this is Ibn al-Qayyim's tafsir of the ayah. He said, what Allah is saying to you is let each individual one of you look at what you put forward for Yawm al-Qiyamah. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah, and let every person look at what he put forward for tomorrow. What is tomorrow here in the ayah? Yawm al-Qiyamah. Let everyone look, what have I done? What will be in my account Yawm al-Qiyamah? Will it be righteous deeds which will save you, or will it be sins that will destroy you? That's what Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that the summary of the tafsir of the ayah is this. Let everyone look at your deeds which you will find presented to you Yawm al-Qiyamah. Are they the good deeds that will save you, or are they the bad deeds that will destroy you? He gave a definition in Madarij al-Salikin. This is in the first volume, page 169, where he, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, defines what is meant by محاسبة النفس. He says, التمييز بين ما له وعليه. It is for you to distinguish what is for you and what is against you. Or you can say, what have you done? Yani what do you need to do and what is yet to be done? فَيَسْتَصْحِبُ مَا لَهُ وَيُؤَدِّي مَا عَلَيْهِ. And so what will the person do? The person will take what belongs to them and will fulfill what is obligatory upon them. Why? Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, لِأَنَّهُ مُسَافِرٌ. Because he's a traveler. سَافَرَ مَنْ لَا يَعُودُ. And this traveler, he's never ever coming back. My dear brothers and sisters, we are travelers on a journey that you can never take one step back from it. You are traveling to the akhirah, whether you are doing righteous deeds or whether you are doing the worst of sins. فَإِنَّكَ مُسَافِرٌ. You are a traveler. سَافَرَ مَنْ لَا يَعُودُ. And you are never ever taking a step back where you came from. So look at where you're going to end up on this journey and ask yourself, is it righteous deeds or is it sins? He then quotes Ibn al-Qayyim from Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala. The quote is in Ighathat al-Lahfan. He said that Al-Hasan al-Basri said, rahimahullah ta'ala, لا تلقى المؤمن إلا يحاسب نفسه. Al-Hasan al-Basri, look, he's describing how were the Sahaba and the Tabi'een. You never see a believer except he's asking himself what he's done. You'll never see a believer except he's asking, he's questioning his soul all the time. ماذا أردت تعملين؟ ماذا أردت تأكلين؟ ماذا أردت تشربين؟ He said he's constantly saying to his soul, what is it you want to do? What is it that you want to eat? What is it you want to drink? What have you done? What will you do? He's constantly asking his soul. And we're going to hear later on that this asking happens twice. It happens before you do something and it happens after you've done it. Some people have a misunderstanding. They think that this muhasabah is only afterwards. No. The Salaf, rahimahumullah ta'ala, they used to make this muhasabah before they did it. Why do you want to do this? Why are you sitting here? Why are you saying these words? Why are you reading this? Why are you going to say it? Is it for Allah? They used to ask themselves before, and then afterwards they would ask, what did you do? Was it for Allah? Was it really like that? What else? Why did you fall into this? So they would ask themselves before and they would ask themselves after. Listen to what Al-Hasan al-Basri says about the fasiq and the fajr, the one who is from the criminals and the evildoers. He said, وَإِنَّ الْفَاجِرَ يَمْضِي قَدُمًا مَا يُعَاتِبُ نَفْسَهُ. As for the wicked person, he goes on and on in his life and he never ever criticizes himself for what he did. He never stops, not for the deen, maybe for the dunya. He says, why I didn't take that business and why I didn't sell that product and why did I not take out of this job and take a different one. But never in his deen does he stop and ask himself, why did I do that thing that I did? There's another narration, Ibn al-Qayyim also mentions it, from Al-Hasan al-Basri. He mentions it slightly different. إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنَ وَاللَّهِ مَا نَرَاهُ إِلَّا يَلُومُ نَفْسَهُ. He says the believer, in Hasan al-Basri, he said the believer, wallahi, we never see him except that he blames himself. مَا أَرَدْتُ بِكَلِمَتِي مَا أَرَدْتُ بِأَكَلَتِي مَا أَرَدْتُ بِحَدِيثِ نَفْسِي. The believer says, what did I want with this statement? Why did I say those words? Why did I eat that thing? Why did I say those things to myself? Allahu Akbar. They took themselves to account even in hadithun nafs. Even what you say to yourself in your heart, what you imagine to yourself in your mind. Why did I imagine that? Why did I think that? وَإِنَّ الْفَاجِرَ يَمْضِي قَدُمًا مَا يُعَاتِبُ نَفْسَهُ. But as for the wicked person, years and years and years go by, they never ask themselves or blame themselves, why did I do this or why didn't I do this? Now we've been talking about the ayah in Surah Al-Hashr. But the ayah in Surah Al-Hashr, if you remember, I read for you 3 ayat, not one. One ayah we spoke about it. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. As for the statement إن الله خبير بما تعملون, if you don't ask yourself about what you have done, for wallahi Allah is going to ask you. Whether you ask yourself or you don't, whether you take yourself to account or you don't, Allah is going to take you to account and Allah is going to ask you. So better you ask yourself before Allah will ask you, because Allah knows the reality of what you do. As for the second ayah, don't think it's disconnected. Sometimes you ever find this. If you're thinking about an ayah and there's a topic you're studying and there's an ayah the scholars bring. This ayah doesn't exist on its own. Right? It's part of a series of ayat. Look at the ayah afterwards. Maybe you will find it still connected to the topic. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim says in the tafsir of this ayah. Don't be like those people who forgot Allah, so He made them forget themselves. Don't be like the people who forgot Allah, so He made them forget themselves. He said, فَهَؤُلَاءِ نَسَوْا أَنفُسَهُمْ فَهَؤُلَاءِ نَسُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. These people, they forgot themselves. لَا مِنْ جَمِيعِ الْوُجُوهِ. Don't think they forgot themselves completely. Maybe you listen to this, they forgot themselves. You think these people were zuhad. They were zahid, living outside of the world, they forgot themselves, they forgot to eat, they forgot to drink, they forgot to marry. No. Don't think they were not like this. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, they didn't forget themselves in everything. Why did they forget themselves? بَلْ مِنَ الْوَجْهِ الَّذِي بِهِ مَصَالِحُهَا وَكَمَالُهَا وَسَعَادَتُهَا. They forgot themselves in the thing which will bring them goodness and happiness and perfection. وَإِن لَمْ يَنْسَوْهَا مِنَ الْوَجْهِ الَّذِي مِنْهُ شَهْوَتُهَا وَحَظُّهَا وَإِرَادَتُهَا. But when it came to their desires, and when it came to their wishes and what they wanted, and when it came to their share, my share, and this is mine, they didn't forget. They remembered everything they wanted. They remembered their shahwa. They remembered their hadh. This is mine, this belongs to me. They remembered what they wanted. They remembered it. But they forgot what is going to bring them eternal happiness. فَأَنْسَاهُمْ مَصَالِحَ نُفُوسِهِمْ أَنْ يَفْعَلُوهَا وَيَطْلُبُوهَا. So what did Allah give them? Allah made them forget the things that would bring them goodness in the akhirah. Allah made them forget what would bring them goodness to do it. So they forgot to do good deeds. They forgot to pray. They forgot to be good to their parents. Have any of you ever had that experience? Well, I've had that experience. I'm not going to say, I can't lie. Where you forgot to do a good deed. And there's a good deed you're supposed to do, and it just, wallah, I forgot how important it is to pray Qiyam al-Layl. I forgot how important it is to keep ties with my relatives. This forgetfulness, sometimes it comes because you forgot to take yourself to account. And if you forget to take yourself to account, perhaps Allah will cause you to forget what is going to bring you Jannah. Wal-'iyadhu billah. And Allah made them forget what else? Allah made them forget to do the deeds that will bring them Jannah. There's something else Allah made them forget. Allah made them forget عُيُوبَهَا وَنَقَائِصَهَا أَن يُزَيِّرُوهَا وَيَجْتَنِبُوهَا. Allah made them forget their faults. Allah made them forget their flaws. Allah made them forget the things that they were deficient in. They forgot to do good deeds and they forgot to leave sins because they forgot to take their soul to account. And Ibn al-Qayyim, he expands upon this in Ighathatul Lahfan. He says, وَتَرْكَ الْمُحَاسَبَةِ وَالْإِسْتِرْسَالُ وَتَسْهِيلُ الْأُمُورِ وتمشيتها فإن هذا يقول به إلى الهلاك وهذه حال أهل الغرور يمغض عينيه عن العواقب ويمشي الحال ويتكل على العفو. He said, leaving off taking yourself to account and just taking everything to be easy, making everything easy for yourself. I'm not talking about in religion. I'm not talking about, for example, shortening your prayers when you're traveling. Making things, being easy on yourself. تسهيل الأمور على نفسك. And you're saying to yourself, it's nothing. Small sin, small sin. Making things easy for yourself. And just letting everything go. يمشي الحال. Just let everything go. Just don't worry about it. It'll do. This is going to lead a person to destruction. This is the situation of the people who are fooled by this world. Their eyes are closed at the moment of death, or their eyes are closed, not at the moment of death. Their eyes are closed from seeing what will happen at the moment of death. Their eyes are closed, they don't see what is going to happen to them Yawm al-Qiyamah. And they let things go on. And they rely upon what? يَتَّكِلُ عَلَى الْعَفُوِ. He relies upon Allah's forgiveness. And says, Allah Kareem, Allah is going to forgive me. Allah is going to have mercy on me. Allah Kareem, don't worry about it. He lets things go. So what happens? فَيُهْمِلُ مَحَاسَبَةَ نَفْسِهِ وَالنَّظَرَ فِي الْعَاقِبَةِ. He doesn't take himself to account. He never looks at what's going to happen to him يوم القيامة. وَإِذَا فَعَلَ ذَلِكَ سَهُلَ عَلَيْهِ مَوَاقِعَةُ الذُّنُوبِ وَأَنِسَ بِهَا وَعُسِرَ وعسر عليه فطامها ولو حضره رشده لعلم أن الحمية أسهل من الفطام وترك المألوف والمعتاد. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, this person, when they become reliant upon Allah's mercy, Allah is going to forgive me. Allah Kareem. They never take themselves to account. They never look at what the end result of their actions is going to be. And so what? It's easy for them to sin. Sinning becomes easy for them. And they start to enjoy sinning. and they start to find it hard to leave their sins. If this person had wisdom, they would realize that protection from something, like they say, I don't know the expression we say in English, that the prevention is better than the cure, right? That it's easier to be protected from a sin than it is to leave it later. Wallah, I believe if we took this statement and just wrote it down as a point, a fa'idah for yourself, how many people say about their kids, or let them exposed to a little bit so they won't do more later. It's not like that. If you are saved and protected from something, it's easier than having to leave it later on. As for leaving something you love and leaving something you're used to, it's very hard to leave something you love and something you're used to. But it's much easier to take yourself to account and leave it before it starts. Protect yourself from it before it starts. Ibn al-Qayyim mentions the famous athar of Umar. He mentions it in Madarij al-Salikin. This statement of Umar, fihi ضعف, and it has like some weakness in it, but it's a well-accepted statement, and it's a statement the scholars accepted. In terms of its connection in the chain to Umar, there is some inqita' between the narrator and Umar. There's a break in the chain. However, it is a well-accepted statement which is commonly attributed to Umar radiyallahu anhu. حاسبوا أنفسكم قبل أن تحاسبوا وزنوا أنفسكم قبل أن توزنوا فإنه أهون عليكم في الحساب غدا أن تحاسبوا أنفسكم اليوم. He said, take yourself to account before you are taken to account, and weigh yourselves before you are weighed. In some of the narrations, وَزِنُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ, weigh your deeds before they are weighed. For this will be easier for you when you are taken to account tomorrow, for you to take yourself to account today. وَتَزَيَّنُوا لِلْعَرْضِ الْأَكْبَرِ يَوْمَئِذٍ تُعْرَضُونَ لَا تَخْفَى مِنْكُمْ خَافِيَةٌ. Prepare yourself for the great presentation of the deeds. On that day, your deeds will be presented, and not a single thing will be hidden. And there is no doubt of the truth of this statement, whether it is from the statement of Umar or not. It is easier for yourself to take yourself to account today than it is for you to stand before Allah and answer for what you have done. If you have a habit of taking yourself to account, then your ard, the presentation of your deeds, will be easy for you bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. But if you are not in the habit of taking yourself to account, how will it be when you receive a book? لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أحصاها. Every single tiny little thing you have ever done and everything big that you have done, you find it there. And you never once asked yourself about what you did. How will that be? How will you carry that on that day? يَوْمَئِذٍ تُعْرَضُونَ. On that day, you will be presented before Allah and your deeds will be presented to you. And not a single thing will be hidden from you. It's also narrated from Umar that he wrote to one of the people who worked for him, حاسب نفسك في الرخاء قبل حساب الشدة. He said, take yourself to account in while things are easy for you, before the account which is hard for you comes. فإن من حاسب نفسه في الرخاء قبل حساب الشدة عاد أمره إلى الرضا والغبطة. Whoever takes themselves to account while things are easy for them, before the hard accounting takes place, their situation, the end outcome of theirs will be one of pleasure and happiness. وَمَنْ أَلْهَتْهُ حَيَاتُهُ وَشَغَلَتْهُ أَهْوَاؤُهُ عَادَ أَمْرُهُ إِلَى النَّدَامَةِ وَالْخَسَارَةِ. And whoever becomes busy with their life and is preoccupied with their desires, their end result will be sorrow and loss. It's narrated from Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, إن المؤمن والله ما تراه إلا يلوم نفسه على كل حالاته. You will not see a believer, wallahi, except that he blames himself for everything that he does. يستخسرها في كل ما يفعل. Everything that he does, he sees that it is muqassar. And everything I've done is not good enough. Everything I've done is not good enough. فيندم ويلوم نفسه. He regrets and he blames himself. وإن الفاجر ليمضي قدما لا يعاتب نفسه. وإن الفاجر ليمضي قدما لا يعاتب نفسه. As for the wicked person, he goes by his time and he never blames himself. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says about this rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَمَنْ تَأَمَّلَ أَحْوَالَ الصَّحَابَةِ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وجدهم في غاية العمل مع غاية الخوف. ونحن جمعنا بين التقصير بل بين التفريط والأمن. He said, whoever looks at how the Sahaba used to be, is going to find the Sahaba used to work and do deeds that we cannot imagine. So many good deeds. And they were so scared that they would not be accepted. As for us, we join between two things. First of all, we don't do the good deeds. We don't even do the wajibat, let alone the extra good deeds. And we believe we'll be safe. How strange is that? Wa'ajaba. How strange is it that the Sahaba joined between hard work and being scared of it not being accepted. And we join between laziness and believing that our deeds will be accepted. We don't do enough, and yet we believe that we are in al-firdaus al-a'la min al-jannah. We believe that we are in the highest place of Jannah. The Sahaba used to work in the way we cannot describe, and they used to be scared that nothing would be accepted from them. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. Those people who give what they gave and their hearts are trembling, perhaps Allah will not accept the good that they have done. And Al-Hasan al-Basri, he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, al-mu'minu qawwamun ala nafsih, yuhasibuha lillah. The believer is constantly looking over himself. You know, we always talk about how Allah is watching you, right? وَأَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. You worship Allah as though you can see Him, and even though you can't see Him, you know that He sees you. But you can't achieve this level of ihsan and this level of righteousness unless you do one thing. You are the first person to look at your own self. تُرَاقِبُ نَفْسَكَ. You actually start to look at yourself and look over your deeds and ask yourself, what am I doing? Then you will feel the sense that Allah is watching you. If you are not watching yourself, how will you be scared of Allah watching you when you're not even watching what you do yourself? You don't even know the good deeds you did today or the bad deeds you did today. So how are you going to stand and behave as though Allah is watching you if you are not watching yourself? He said, وَإِنَّمَا خَفَّ الْحِسَابُ عَلَى قَوْمٍ حَاسَبُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا وإنما شق الحساب يوم القيامة على قوم أخذوا هذا الأمر من غير محاسبة. He said, Al-Hasan al-Basri, that the accounting on the Day of Judgment will be made easy for the people who used to take themselves to account in this world. And it will be made hard for those people who they never used to take themselves to account in this world. And Ibn al-Qayyim, he praised the statement of Maymun ibn Mahran in Madarij al-Salikin. He said, لا يكون العبد تقيا حتى يكون لنفسه أشد محاسبة من الشريك لشريكه. He said, a person will not be a person of taqwa until they are more strict on themselves than you would be with your business partner and the person you're sharing your business with. Why you took that money out of the account for? Whose is this? Did you come to work at the same time as me? Until you are this strict with yourself, you can't be a person of taqwa. So now we come to an important topic, and that is, how do we take ourselves to account? We understood the value of it, we understood how the Sahaba used to be keen for it and do it, but what's the process, what's the steps? First of all, we need to understand that محاسبة النفس ينقسم أو تنقسم إلى قسمين. It's divided into two parts. المحاسبة قبل العمل والمحاسبة بعد العمل. Taking yourself to account before you do something and taking yourself to account after you have done something. As for before you have done something, what is the evidence for this? The same ayah. Ibn Kathir in his tafsir, if you look at the tafsir of Ibn Kathir about the ayah in Surah Al-Hashr, the Prophet ﷺ quoted this ayah in a hadith. Which hadith did he quote it in? He quoted it in the hadith of the story of the sadaqah when he said, Man sanna fil islami sunnatan hasana. The hadith about whoever sets a good example in Islam. Did he say it before the person gave sadaqah or after? Before. And the Prophet ﷺ stood up and said to the Sahaba when he wanted them to give sadaqah, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu taqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat lighad. Let you look at what you've put forward for tomorrow. Then ثُمَّ حَثَّهُمْ عَلَى الصَّدَقَةِ. Then he encouraged them to give sadaqah. So he told them before they did it. He quoted this ayah before they gave the sadaqah. So this is a proof that the muhasabah takes place twice. It takes place before you do it and after. He didn't wait for them to give sadaqah and then say, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْتَنظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. He said it to them to encourage them. And if you're going to look at what you've put forward, now do more good deeds. Then when they have done it afterwards, then there is this muhasabah again. And Al-Hasan al-Basri mentions this. He said, كَانَ أَحَدُهُمْ, the Sahaba, إِذَا أَرَادَ أَنْ يَتَصَدَّقَ بِصَدَقَةٍ. If one of the Sahaba wanted to give sadaqah, نَظَرَ وَتَثَبَّتْ. He would look at himself, he would ask himself, is this really for Allah? فَإِنْ كَانَتْ لِلَّهِ أَمْضَاهَا. If it was really for Allah, he would give it. So the Sahaba used to make this muhasabah before they gave it. In other words, I'm going to say, for example, I'm going to read an ayah or a hadith. Before I read the ayah, I ask myself, is this for Allah? If it's for Allah, Bismillah, we read it. If it's not for Allah, I'm saying it to make some reaction or because it's going to be popular on Instagram or leave it. This is the muhasabah that is qabla al-amal, before you do it. As for the muhasabah which is after you have done it, Ibn al-Qayyim, he describes it in detail in Ighathat al-Lahfan in page number 83. He said, أن يحاسب نفسه أولا على الفرائض فإن تذكر فيها نقصا تداركه إما بقضاء أو إصلاح. It's really nice what he said. Pay attention to this. He said the first thing you start with is the fara'id, the obligatory deeds. You start to ask yourself about all the things which were obligatory for you to do today, earlier today. If you find any flaw in it, deficiency in it, you make up for it. How do you make up for it? Qada or islah. Either you do it again, qada, you know what people call qaza, and you make up, you do it again, you pray it again, you make up for it again, you do it again. Or islah, or you fix it. You fix it how? Yani for example, if you were doing something, in the middle of doing something and you realized it wasn't for Allah, you correct your intention to make it for Allah, for example. Then he said, ثُمَّ يُحَاسِبُهَا عَلَى الْمَنَاهِي. Then you take yourself to account for what Allah told you not to do, yani what's haram. فإن عرف أنه ارتكب منها شيئا تداركه بالتوبة والاستغفار والحسنات الماحية. So the first thing you ask yourself is about what? The fard. You found a mistake, you made up for it, you fixed it. The second thing that you looked at yourself is what is haram. If you found yourself that you did something haram, what do? You fix it. How do you fix it? التوبة والاستغفار والحسنات الماحية. The first thing you do is at-tawbah. You turn to Allah in tawbah. And you make istighfar. You ask Allah's forgiveness. And you do the good deeds that wipe out the bad deeds. The hadith, Prophet ﷺ, اتق الله حيثما كنت وأتبع السيئة الحسنة تمحها. Follow up the bad deed with a good deed, it will wipe it out. ثم يحاسب نفسه على الغفلة. Then you ask yourself about what you forgot. Yani what were you unaware of? When was it that I was supposed to, I didn't remember Allah, or I was just distracted? You ask yourself about those times when you're distracted. فإن كان قد غفل عما خلق له تداركه بالذكر والإقبال على الله تعالى. So if you found that there were times in the day you were not remembering Allah, how do you fix it? You remember Allah and you turn to Him. You remember Allah to make up for the time in the day where you didn't remember Allah. ثم يحاسبها بما تكلم به أو مشت إليه رجلاه أو بطشت يداه أو سمعته أذناه ماذا أردت بهذا ولما فعلته وعلى أي وجه فعلته. Then you take yourself to account for everything you said and where you went with your feet and what your hands touched and what your ears heard. What did you want from it? Okay, today you heard some music, you are walking past a place, you heard it. Did you stop to listen? Or did you, وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا, did you just walk past it quickly that you didn't give it attention? Why did you do it? What was the reason you did it for? Why did you go to that place that you visited today? Why did you go to it? Was there a reason for it? Was it beneficial for you? وَيَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُ لَا بُدَّ أَن يُنْشَرْ لِكُلِّ حَرَكَةٍ وَكَلِمَةٍ مِّنْهُ دِيوَانَانِ دِيوَانُ لِمَا فَعَلْتَ وَكَيْفَ فَعَلْتَ. He said, and you realize that every movement you made and every word you say, there are two things you have to ask yourself. Record for yourself. Why did you do it and how did you do it? Every single word you say, every single movement you make, why did you do it and how did you do it? فالأول سؤال عن الإخلاص والثاني سؤال عن المتابعة. Allahu Akbar. The first one is a question, are you sincere for Allah? And the second one is a question, did you follow the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And then he mentioned the ayat. And among the ayat Ibn al-Qayyim mentions is لِيَسْأَلَ الصَّادِقِينَ عَنْ صِدْقِهِمْ, Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah number 8. That we will ask the truthful people about their truthfulness. Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, فَإِذَا سُئِلَ الصَّادِقُونَ وَحُسِبُوا عَلَى صِدْقِهِمْ فَمَا الظَّنُّ بِالْكَاذِبِينَ. If truthful people are going to be asked about why they were truthful, what do you think about the people who are not truthful? Are they not also going to be asked? From the other things that Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned, and there's too many to bring them all together, in Madarij al-Salikin, on page 170, Ibn al-Qayyim mentions that Bidayatul Muhasabah is to remember the blessings of Allah upon you. And before all of that, before you take yourself to account is just to remember Allah's blessings and to ask yourself what you have done with those blessings. And there are many other points that he mentioned, but this is of benefit. And I'm going to conclude with a statement which Ibn al-Jawzi mentioned. He mentions it in his book Dhamm al-Hawa, the blameworthiness of following your desires. And that is that you have to take yourself to account for the permissible things as well. This is something Ibn al-Qayyim didn't mention, but this is something Ibn al-Jawzi added to it. You have to ask yourself about the permissible things that you did. Did I really need to do it? Did it really bring me nearer to Allah? Did it bring me close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or did it make a gap between me and Allah? Did it break my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because wallahi, sometimes you will find from the mubahat, the things Ibn al-Jawzi said, you were gonna say, ma li wa li hada. This had nothing to do with me, wallahi. This was not beneficial for me to do. This was not of benefit for me to do. Ma li wa li hada. I have nothing to do with this. And you might even say, wallahi la a'udu li hada abadan inshallah. I'm never ever going to go back to this. And this is from what? Al-mubahat. The permissible things that you realized they took you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We finish with just a few benefits. I'm going to mention maybe 5 or 6 of the benefits of taking yourself to account. Number 1, you know your own flaws. You get to know your own mistakes. Number 2, you realize Allah's blessings and grace upon you. Number 3, you rush to make tawbah. Number 4, you develop a certain self-loathing, if that's the right word. They call it maqtun nafs. And you don't see yourself to be so high. You don't see yourself to be so pious. Somebody says about you, oh, look at that, masha'Allah, taqi. And you are like, look, you don't know me. والله لو علموا قبيح سريرتي لأبى السلام علي من يلقاني ولا أعرضوا عني وملوا صحبتي ولا بؤت بعد كرامة بهواني. Like the poet, he said that if they knew the filth that was in my soul, nobody would give salam to me. And they would have turned away from being my companion. They would have got bored of being around me. They would have run away from me and got bored of my companionship. And instead of Allah honoring me, I would have been disgraced. لكن سترت معايبي ومثالبي وحلمت عن سقطي وعن طغياني. But oh Allah, you concealed my flaws and my mistakes. And you forgave my shortcomings and my transgressions. فلك المحامد والمدائح كلها بجوارحي وخواطري, or he said بخواطري وجوارحي ولساني. For all praise is to Allah with my mind and my limbs and my tongue. Because Allah concealed that if somebody knew the reality of what you and me are, they wouldn't even give us salam. But Allah Azza wa Jal conceals. And from the benefits is that it makes you want to purify your soul. It makes you want to do tazkiyatun nafs, to purify your soul and to do good deeds and to keep away from sins. And I'll finish with a quote from Ibn al-Qayyim in Ighathatul Lahfan that he quotes from Malik ibn Dinar. He said, رحم الله عبدا قال لنفسه ألست صاحبة كذا ألست صاحبة كذا ثم ذمها ثم خطمها ثم ألزمها كتاب الله عز وجل فكان لها قائدا. He said, may Allah have mercy on a person who says to his soul, aren't you the one who did this? Aren't you the one who did this? Then he blames his soul. Then he brings it under his control. Then he forces it to follow the book of Allah, and so the book of Allah will become its guide. And that, as I said, Ibn Qayyim, he mentions it in Ighathatul Lahfan from Malik ibn Dinar, and he mentions it on page number 79. So I think that is more than enough. We did a long topic today, but we were away for 2 weeks, so we had to make up for it a little bit. But I think this is the beginning of our journey on understanding Tazkiyatun Nafs. It's going to start with what? Taking yourself to account. How can you want to purify something if you don't know that it needs to be purified in the first place? FaInshaAllah ta'ala, this is a reminder for myself and for all of you. And that is what Allah Azza wa Jal made easy for me to mention. We'll ask if there's any quick questions. If anyone would like to go or they have anything, it's no issue, inshallah. If anyone has any few questions, we will take them, inshallah. Tafaddal, akhi al-kareem.
You mentioned that there won't be any lesson for the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
Does that go with the lesson that you're doing midweek?
Yes, both tafsir and this lesson will not be for the next 2 more weeks, inshallah. And subhanAllah, when we started these lessons, we didn't plan for these programs, but قدر الله وما شاء فعل. We had some programs arranged that we couldn't move them, so. But after that, it will be continuous, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
And one question regarding the last lesson that we had. You mentioned that I believe it was Ibn Qayyim. He speaks about thought processes. They start in the heart, and then they process the brain. You can see the results in that. Could you remind me what book it was in that he mentioned?
It's a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, as far as I remember. And it's a quote regarding al-aql, regarding the mind, and regarding the soul, right? The ruh. The question is, can I find it in my notes very quickly? And the answer is, I don't remember which part of my notes I put it in. I will see you outside in the masjid, inshallah. And I've got it here, I just don't remember which part of my notes I put it in, and I recall the quote, but I don't recall the book. It's definitely from Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala. It's from Majmu' al-Fatawa. But I've got the page number and the volume number written down. But now I remember it's from Majmu' al-Fatawa that we spoke about, the connection between the mind and the soul and the heart, right? It's from Majmu' al-Fatawa, but I will get you that. I have it written down, the volume number, inshallah. Wa iyaakum. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
2 quick questions, if it's okay.
Of course.
The last 5 benefits that you told us, these are benefits specifically to holding yourself to account?
Yes, the last 5 benefits we spoke about are the benefits of holding yourself to account. You get to know your weaknesses, you get to appreciate Allah's blessings and so on. That's the benefit. It's not only for that, they can be for other things, but that's what I mentioned them for.
And then, can you give an example of something that would be something that would not bring you close?
Sure, I can give an example of something mubah that might not bring you close to Allah Azza wa Jal. Let's give 3 examples. One, let's give the example of what you eat, your food and drink. So food and drink which is mubah, but a person finds that their diet is making them lazy, for example, from going to the salah, or it's not helping them, or they find themselves to struggle to get up or they don't have a lot of energy in the day. So they change the mubah diet. They're not filling their stomach, they're not eating haram, but they change it to something which is better for their ibadah. That's one example. Another example, for example, playing sports. Many times, maybe some of the young brothers, they enjoy to play a lot of sports, but they see that this, which is mubah, they see this thing which they are doing maybe is taking them away from other things that are more beneficial. For example, they enjoy it, but they're doing it a bit too much, and maybe it's taking them away from extra hifth or things that they could be doing, so they leave some of those. Things. And likewise, we could talk about even sleep, or even going to the shops and what you spend your money on. For example, a person spent their money on halal, but they saw after a while that, if I had not spent so much money on that, but actually spent a bit more money, for example, eating out or ordering food in or something, but instead I had given that money for sadaqah, or I had put that money towards buying books, or then that would have been better. So these are some examples of the mubahat, which a person is permissible, but a person might want to leave them or change them because they see that it's breaking their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the long run. وإياكم. Yes, Habib. We mentioned this last week, not last week, but last lesson, that in this meaning there's no difference. Purifying the heart and the soul both mean the same thing in our sitting here. Actually, in a longer discussion, yes, there could be a difference between the heart and the soul, but when the people talk about purifying the heart, what they mean is purifying the soul. They don't mean taking your heart out like it happened to the Prophet ﷺ and washing it in Zamzam water. They mean purifying the soul that is within the body and within the heart. So they mean the same thing. In this class, they mean the same thing. Does that make sense? Alhamdulillah. Okay. Do we have any last questions? If not, then we are going to stop there. That's what Allah Azza wa Jal made easy for me to mention. Allah knows best. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Please remember, no class for the next 2 weeks, not here and not in Mirdif. As for Sheikh Abdul Rahman, I believe it's only next week for Sheikh Abdul Rahman. Only 1 week that he's going to miss his class, inshallah, in Mirdif. And also, please be careful about parking next time you come, inshallah. Wa jazakumullahu khairan.